I think the teams that are pushing the edge of what these workflows are the ones that are going straight to code as quickly as they can. And yet the output is still very high quality, not just because the AI models are getting better and smarter, but also because they are instructing them. We still need to be there. We still need to be that infinite context window, that guiding light to empower the models to actually execute at a caliber that is indistinguishable from some human pushing all the pixels to make it look that way. You know, how many times have I said it now? It's like exciting times, but like it really is. It's so exciting that it's hard to even like step back every day and recognize what's happening before our eyes.
I've got a question that I don't think anyone talks about. Basically, here's the thing, and a little backstory on my front. A lot of the Webflow community kind of like laughs at me for this when they find out. I don't even use Figma. I use Figma for logos, illustration, stuff like
Let's go.
that. I don't use Figma for UI design. I historically have just jumped straight into Webflow, and these days I'm just jumping straight into Claude Code and working up something from scratch. But here's the thing: I started in design in Roblox, as I told you like 3 times now. But my career very quickly took a turn to, I guess, more like management and planning type roles. And so I would not sit here and try to tell you like I'm a great designer or anything like that. I try to avoid even referring to myself as a designer. And so for me, fine. I'm not building I'm not creating the most beautiful, unique designs ever to come up. So for me, jumping straight into Claude Code and designing and iterating works. How do you use AI in the design workflow? A lot of people, I think, would love to hear. I would love to hear that.
So such a good question. I mean, I would start by saying, ironically, this is in some ways always been my hope, especially since finding Webflow. I remember having these feelings early on finding Webflow that there was so many things that felt familiar, like a Photoshop, especially at the time. I think because I kind of skipped the sketch phase. Like I went straight from I would design sites in Illustrator. I did Photoshop very early in my career, but then I just liked vector and all that, and it felt more familiar. And I went mostly straight from Illustrator to Figma when Figma was early. And even then, I remember being I just don't feel like I need this other than editing a photo or making an asset. I feel like my passion has always been towards, can I just go to what you said, straight into Webflow to do most of these things? And I think that ironically, a lot of the path that I felt was vital to nail in order to make that possible was the foundation, hence Mast or using a framework or some starting point that I'm not truly starting from scratch, building things in a way that is familiar and efficient and quick, that I can get in and in a lot of ways stand up a simple page, or sometimes not simple, almost just as quick as I can in Figma from scratch, to be clear. But yet the result is a publishable page, right? I think the interesting part I found, though, and maybe this is more just from the lens of something I didn't say earlier, is I freelanced on the side for quite a long time since joining the team at Anthropic. Even to your point of having time to play with these tools, for me that was something I was trying to just be done. Again, 2 little kids. I'm getting older. I can't do that side gig thing forever. So I'm done freelancing, which has been very freeing, but at the same time, I still end up, again, just on my phone or whatever with Claude Code many of nights, because I'm I'd rather go build something and, tinker with toys than be doom scrolling on social or whatever, even though that still happens. But the point is that I'm still more fueled than ever to try to solve that or have that be part of my own workflows. I don't need to mock something up in Figma. Why? Especially, I think a huge detail is when you already have launched a site, you have established components, design systems, all that. In my opinion, it's all the more reason that you already have these building blocks over here. Why are we building them here in Figma statically? And what I was going to say around the context of freelancing is the thing I found that is the hardest to solve in this question, or will we need Figma in the future, is actually not ourselves, it's who we work with. It's the clients, the in-house marketing people, all that, they take longer to understand that potential. They are so much more familiar with, and are, especially even in-house teams I'd say most marketers ever work with, only the last couple of years I've noticed most are now very comfortable getting in Figma, adding comments, maybe even editing text, stuff like that. And they almost like, again, not to stereotype, but I see a lot of them excited and confident. They're like, wow, I can like participate with designers in Figma. And then quickly I'm like, or just come over here in the CMS, again, Webflow, what have you, that like we can just do the same thing in there. And even then it just has taken, it takes quite a bit of repetition and reminders and encouragement to get people into that mindset so that then you can fully live in that mindset. Because at the end of the day, like, yes, we have portfolios or personal projects here and there, but like the vast majority of the work that we do, anybody that's making money professionally in this industry as like design, web development, etc., are only able to do that because of the clients that hire us or the teams we work on that pay us, right? And so like if they're not going to adopt that mentality, then it's going to be hard for us to do it. And so like I think if anything, I'm just like really keeping with it. I think the most recent take I have on this that I see as like another potential through hole is like, again, back to the point of like you have to have a solid design system framework set up, whether that's in Webflow or what have you. But then on top of that, how can I now use Claude to be very, very familiar through its what either skills, instructions, etc. of that design system, and have as much awareness and understand my intentions of implementing it or implementing pages with it as I would, and then using that as a vehicle to mock up pages really, really quickly or iterate on pages really, really quickly. Like I was trying to think of an analogy to this. I love metaphors that like there's so often this precious nature for us as like building web pages that like maybe is part of the inspiration of staying in Figma is like iteration. Well, in Figma I can just dupe, make edits, all that. Like even think about Framer, their update from last year of like they have design mode now so that you can have that freedom to design whatever. And I'm like, cool, like I totally get the product direction and why people would be excited. But like, are we also so precious about like, other than maybe this is a biased take because of I don't have to pay for Claude directly because of working there or whatever. But like, other than the cost to use Claude or some AI a bit more, what's to stop us from like, hey, we need a new page. Here's the content. Go build me 4 examples of it. Like, and I'll review all of them next to each other, just like I would have 4 different directions in Figma. Like, why not do that? Like, what feels so limiting by that, other than, again, the cost to do it, which in a lot of ways you could argue the same thing in Figma. You're just paying somebody more time to go push pixels around in Figma to have the same result of like, I want to review examples, pick my favorite ones, combine them together, and, always is what ends up happening, and then ship the thing. And so like, I don't know, that's where I'm excited is like, I don't think that means that Figma is doomed or we won't use Figma. I think it's more just like, I think the teams that are pushing the edge of what these workflows are the ones that are going straight to code as quickly as they can. And yet the output is still very high quality, not just because the AI models are getting better and smarter, but also because they are instructing them. Like in the same way of the silly Atlas movie analogy is like, we still need to be there. We still need to be that infinite context window, that guiding light to empower the models to actually execute at a caliber that is indistinguishable from some human pushing all the pixels to make it look that way. And yet, like, I think a lot of people I've talked to or seen posts in socials is like, it feels like you said earlier, it's one or the other. They either assume that it's all slop. I don't really like that buzzword. I don't know why. It's like they just assume that no, there is no in between. You either like prompt it and it does everything, or and it's complete shit, or you have to do everything manually. It's like, no, like what if there's this mind melding world where we can do all of it, as we're already seeing with engineering, and we're just going to start seeing it also even more in design, even more in writing, all that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I am so glad to hear you say that. That is my exact workflow. Like a lot of people, they'll see something, that was generated with one prompt and be like, this is slop. Well, I mean, you're gonna get what you're gonna get with one prompt. When people are like, dude, share the prompt that you made the MemberStack homepage with, I'm like, how do you want that delivered? Like, do you want me to mail you a book?
Like, do you want a 7-gigabyte zip?
Literally, dude, like I spent, like 13, 14 hours just going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But again, like you said, at the end of the day, what I get out of that is like shippable. It's publishable.
Oh,
it's not 100%. Just online, final take from me on the whole like Figma side of things is here's the thing: when you're developing, you inherently have guardrails. Guardrails are not really limitations, but you know what I mean, like something that would be easy to do with CSS, for example. Whereas when you're in Figma, it's like you're only limited by your own eyes. And so when I'm working on something that really needs to be the most creative and well thought out thing, I'll still make like a little mock up in Figma. I'll never name my layers, no auto layout, none of that stuff. I don't see the point. But by the
Right.
time
Totally. Same.
and functional, dude, like I'm in Webflow, I'm working with Claude Code, and so man, I see the time here. I have one final question for you, similar topic, and that is visual editing. So I think nobody has a good answer to this right now. You kind of have two workflows. You have like agentic, let's say working with Claude Code, and then you have visual development working with Webflow. I have tried numerous times to make visual editors, and I've succeeded a couple times, like visual editors for like, Tailwind and React. But every time I do, I stop using them and I'm like, I don't even need this. But at the same time, I do want it. So it's like, what do you see? So you sent me agentation, by the way, and we'll play like what agentation is on the screen here. Super cool. You click something, provide some context, and then paste it into whatever AI you're using. That is the best version for me of, let's say, a visual agentic workflow, to put it that way. Do you see that as like the final boss of working with agents visually, or do you see room for something which is visual? Like, what are your thoughts on that? I have literally no idea, so I'm interested.
Oh man, I'm gonna go metaphorical and deep, because that's, again, I just like thinking and seeing the world this way. This exact thought came about the other day of like, again, if we like try to back up as far as we can to our nature as human beings, like, although this is not unanimous, everybody has different abilities, to be clear, the vast majority of how we are created as humans and experience the world is our eyeballs, right? Or feeling things and smelling things, like our senses, right? And for me, at least, then that is a lot of the times, like you've heard the saying, believing is, or seeing is believing, right? Like that's not always the case, of course. But I think there's something of merit to that in this exact analogy of like, seeing and physically touching and clicking and doing something to a site is inherently trusting. It is something we know we did it. We made the change. We click publish. If somebody questions us on it, no, I saw it and therefore it is real, right? Like that is the way I think I've tried to make sense of this recently, is like, I don't, in so many ways, especially like what I mentioned, I've been dinking around Insanity and they have like visual editing and whatever. It's nowhere near as like, performant as Webflow, where you like instantly everything changes. But like, I've had so many of this like doubt and uncertainty of like, do we even need this? Like, at the end of the day, I just want to get to a point where I fully trust Claude to be like, Claude, here's what we got to update: pricing, this other about page, add this card, add this blog post, just give it all the things we have to do, link it to a doc. It just goes and does it. And I know for certainty, for the same level of certainty as watching it happen, that it's right. And I think that is a lot to ask of people to trust at this moment in time, right? Or at least, again, only speaking for myself, that I don't know if I'm there yet. Like, there's still the potential of hallucinations or whatever. And so that's where I come back to the visual editing of like, I still mostly my especially in this coming year, I really am excited about trying to find this like dream workflow of just like, again, what I just described: Claude, go make all these changes for me, let me know when they're ready, I'll review them, right? Like, this is what engineers are already doing in the context of PRs, right? They get requirements. I've talked to many that I used to work with, for example, or in the community, that this is their life now. Is like, they feed a bunch of requirements to Claude or whatever. It goes and does them. They go to sleep. They wake up in the morning. They have 10 PRs to review. They iterate, make edits, and release or merge, right? Like, and so I want that so badly. But at the same time, I still want that visceral visual part of like reviewing what happened, or the inverse of like, back to the values and power of Webflow is like, we had, even just to call somebody I adore in the community out, is like a little over a year ago, there was a Webflow, offsite or whatever, and we had some people from the community come and talk, and there was a couple on stage, and one of them was Matt Varghese, who runs 80/20, the agency. He just has the best takes. And him and a couple others were asked, "What's your favorite Webflow feature?" And he said the publish button. And that is ingrained in me now because I couldn't agree more that, like, especially as I've used and built Webflow sites and maintained them alongside even like my current context on the team at Anthropic, where we have a site in Sanity, we have a site in Webflow, or I've done this a lot with freelance client in the past where, like, the classic, I'm brought in to move the marketing site to Webflow because engineering doesn't want to maintain it anymore, but there's always still these launches that happen at the same time. So you can very clearly see the difference between something was broken, we got to fix something, it's emergency, get it out. And just the simplicity of Webflow being able to, like, I just know where to go, I see it, click it, make the change, publish, done. And versus, like, at least at this moment in time, go try to do the same thing, like simulate the same experience, even with Claude or any AI. And, like, it will find it fast, it'll probably even make the change fast, but, like, there is sometimes still that uncertainty of, like, yeah, but it did accidentally do something else I didn't want it to do if I wasn't clear enough, or I was in such a hurry that I just, like, didn't give it a clear enough prompt. Like, that, I think, is that threshold that visual editing still is valuable in, is just the small things and the certainty, or just the other side of, like, we've seen, even like you said, with the agentation, is agentation, I don't know how to say it, or again, like V0, Lovable, Bolt, all of them, Cursor has started baking in this, like, visual editing in the last year or more around, in different ways. Some of it's like click and give that to the prompt, some of it is literally like making the change and then behind the scenes it updates the code. The point is, I think all of them see that writing on the wall of, like, people still want that certainty. They also, especially when it comes to refining design and, like, we were talking about replacing something like Figma for most things, then, like, you want that visual experience of refining those and not just, like, getting frustrated going in circles with the AI model. But I think that's the moment in time right now. I think if things keep going the way they're going, all the things you were just describing about the last year of, like, how different it is not fake anymore. This is all real stuff. And then at the same time, our ways of using these things advance, right? Like, think about the last 2 months. And I'm sorry if a lot of this sounds like an echo chamber of, like, things I see on social, especially like X, which I was, like, trying to get off of, and then feel like I'm sucked right back in because I just want to know what people are shipping for AI tools, is, like, all of the explosion of skills. Like, have you seen the Vercel skills directory that shipped? Actually, yes, because I saw your video about ShipStation. You get, like, it's like 36,000 or something skills only in a matter of a few weeks of them curating these things and people submitting them. The point is that skills is a very real expression of what I was getting at earlier around, like, the Atlas equivalent or whatever. Is like, this is our way to really, steer these models in the ways we want to use them, because at the end of the day, they are general. And in theory, yes, they'll keep getting better. And that means the general nature of them will get more and more and more advanced. So you have to, in theory, guide them less. But I think forever, so much of the skills and all that is also not objective. It is subjective. It is things that we prefer, in the same way that, like, I am radically biased with CSS and how it's written, and, like, I very much understand, especially now more than ever, why people love Tailwind. The more I've gotten into React and learned some of that, but, like, I still have my strong preferences of it. I like writing class names. I like clean, concise CSS syntax and reusing of classes and blah blah blah. But that is my preference, and I don't know that AI will ever get so good and intimate at that unless there is some other path to do it that I just we just haven't even thought of yet, or or hasn't been shown yet. It's like, who knows? I think there's always going to be that nature of us. So I don't know, man. It's how many times have I said it now? It's like exciting times, but, like, it really is. It's so exciting that it's hard to even, like, step back every day and recognize what's happening before our eyes and take it also as, like, is this real, or is it a fad, or people overhyping it? And it's like, I think you nailed it earlier. If you can carve out the time or share your experiences, which, again, thank you, Julian, for sharing so much of what you're experiencing, for especially those that don't have the time to do it. Especially my previous freelancing on the side, I was there. I had no time to try these new tools. I just needed to do what I needed to do to execute, make money, and move on to the next project, right? So, like, I think there's so much to try right now, and those that can get in there and do it and try it and be open and vulnerable to it not always going well, but learning something along the way, is, like, ironically, the thing we've always succeeded with as humans is, like, yeah, failing and moving forward, but, like, it's more important now than ever, especially in our industry. So yeah.
Corey, this has been amazing. I have loved
Likewise.
every second of this. Honestly, I think this has been useful for me. You just gave me an idea there. One thing I want to mention and shout out that you said is the seeing is believing. That's the magic of visual editing. And we don't have that right now quite with Agentic, because it does something we're like, wait, but did you? And there are times where we look and check and it didn't. And so it leads to this distrust. So an idea for perhaps you, perhaps me, perhaps someone watching this building a tool is imagine if you made a change with the agent, and then instead of just seeing the code that changed, you could see. So it would be like, before these things were touching. Now these things are touching. That's the magic that we need to capture. I don't know, and I want to talk to you more about that. That's its own conversation. This has been amazing. Thank you so much.
Stoked. Thanks for having me.